Sydney Trains is the suburban passenger rail network servicing the city of Sydney. The first railway in Sydney was opened in 1855, operating between the city centre and Parramatta. And during the 1860s, Sydney experienced a boom in railway expansion in order to connect Sydney with major rural railways surrounding the outer regions. Since then, the network has grown to service over 1 million customer journeys per weekday through 178 stations over 8 lines. This evident expansion has continued to today and is now a direct result of the issues and challenges Sydney Trains is facing, most notably being rising population levels and thus the increase in demand for the service. Passenger demand for trains in Sydney has risen by almost 20% on some lines in just a year, while across the rail network, trips increased by more than 11% or 3.1 million in July 2017. As such, Sydney Trains have had to increase the frequency of their departures and have been required to put in place infrastructure that will continue to service such levels of demand into the future. Another key issue or challenge faced by Sydney Trains is that of new and increasing indirect competition. Ride-sharing apps such as Uber pose a significant threat to Sydney Trains as patrons turn to such apps for their convenience and reliability. Pushbike usage has also increased by 3% in the last 5 years, with more people turning to eco-friendly alternatives.
The nature of the service offering by Sydney Trains raises issues of intangibility, heterogeneity, inseparability, and perishability. Sydney Trains therefore utilises a range of strategies within the marketing mix to overcome these challenges. With the expected 32% increase in demand for train services by 2030, $1.5 billion has been invested into expanding networks and increasing system capacity by 2021. Working with building companies and town planners, Sydney Trains can match their new infrastructure to the main sources of demand, allowing service to work as closely to productive capacity as possible and lessening the negative impacts of perishability. Opal cards give a tangible clue to the pricing of the service, whilst the method in place is one of activity-based costing. Other physical evidence aspects of the service, such as timetables, update boards, and the consistent upkeep of trains themselves, give the service a sense of standardization. These methods help overcome the challenges of heterogeneity and intangibility. Inseparability is a big challenge for Sydney Trains as platforms and carriages are public spaces. Process strategies, such as quiet carriages, disability or priority access, as well as non-smoking rules and sitting or standing areas, are all methods used to manage the inseparable nature of the service.
In order to address Sydney Trains' areas for improvement, it is important to first understand the reasoning behind the current state of the organisation's service. The issues with Sydney Trains are well known to many that rely on this service. However, with the introduction of a system-wide timetable overhaul in November 2017, the many issues that plagued the service became far clearer. The next few months saw some of the service's worst ever delays and cancellations, so bad that an urgent report was undertaken to investigate the causes for the failure of the service. Based on these findings, there are 3 key areas of improvements which Sydney Trains must address. Improve communication with employees and customers, improve the physical evidence within the servicescape, and improve customer access to train information. Sydney Trains must improve its communication with both employees and customers. Had the company thoroughly consulted with both parties prior to the introduction of the new timetable, it is likely that many of the company's service issues may have been easily avoided. For employees, introduce a suggestion involvement, allowing them to participate actively in the workplace, whilst for customers, ensure a 2-sided blueprint is utilized, one that recognizes the needs of both the organization and the customer equally. The second area Sydney Trains must improve upon is the physical evidence found on trains and platforms. Physical evidence must be better utilized to facilitate the customer experience when using this service. One example of this would be using directional lines on platforms to better manage the boarding and disembarking of trains. Using this kind of physical evidence as a facilitator within the servicescape will help to prevent some of the minor issues that can often grow into larger service disruptions. The third area for improvement for Sydney Trains would be to increase customer access to train information. When one views this service as a collaborative process where all parties, organisation, employees and customers are integral to ensuring the overall success of the service, we can begin to understand how important information and, more importantly, the access to it can be to the service process. Essentially, the customer must be understood to be a partial employee, one that has much to contribute to the overall success of the service.
Our three solutions target different areas in which we can enhance the standard of service being provided to commuters of Sydney trains. The three solutions that we are implementing must not only be realistic and achievable, but also target customer satisfaction. If we understand that many people do not have the choice whether their form of transport is via trains, but for the percentage of people that choose alternative routes and options, we want to ensure that we are creating necessary solutions to attract all commuters travelling to and from major cities.
The three suggested solutions being implemented include wireless internet connection while being on the train and on platforms, creating a more efficient route through interconnected lines, and accident prevention tools. In all the solutions we are providing, we are ensuring that it touches on the 5 fundamental perspectives of service quality. These being that the service is reliable and what is promised is delivered, commuters having assurance that we have listened to their concerning issues, as an organisation providing the necessary facilities and materials to carry out these solutions. Finally, remaining empathetic with our commuters and understanding the problems and our willingness to respond and help create a more seamless commuting journey.
Our first solution is to provide access to free wireless internet to our customers, both on the train and waiting in the station or platform. Studies have shown that 9 out of 10 people will spend more than 90 minutes a day travelling to and from work, with the majority of the population living more than 20 kilometres away from their work destination. The idea of having access to free internet while on trains and at stations is to provide customers with the opportunity to use their commute time more effectively.
As the population grows and more people are travelling longer distances to work, particularly the Sydney CBD, platforms and stations are becoming increasingly congested. Much of this congestion and traffic is due to commuters having to change lines to get to particular areas of the city. To create a more efficient travel experience with Sydney trains, it would be recommended to create a more sufficient interconnected train line that targets outer suburbs or suburbs that lack transportation services. For example, having a line running from Epping to Carlingford or Penrith to Hornsby. This will prevent commuters having to come into the city just to change lines to travel back in a similar direction. Not only this will improve service standards, but also show consumers we are listening to their concerns.
One of the main reasons trains are delayed is due to accidents on train platforms. When trains are delayed, this instantly causes Sydney trains to come to a halt and delays the service provided. To prevent accidents, whether planned or incidental, platform screen doors will be implemented on every platform of every station. This will prevent people from accidentally falling onto the tracks, getting too close to moving trains, and preventing the potential for suicide or homicide. As well as preventing accidents, they also have been proven to improve client control within a station. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning are more effective when the station is physically isolated from the tunnel.
In turn, we believe by creating a more efficient and interconnected rail network, we can optimise the standard of service Sydney Trains has to offer to its customers. Most dissatisfaction from existing customers stem from delays, inefficient routes, as well as congestion during peak hours. We believe our implementation can minimise these factors within a trifold process. Firstly, to improve the current efficiency of the rail network, we must optimise the existing train schedules to prevent congestion at outer-city areas. Secondly, prior to the construction of additional train lines, an effective notice system should be utilised to ensure the public are aware of changes to the existing transport infrastructure. Our Sydney Trains app can also be utilised in this step in order to calculate and communicate alternative routes to individual customers. Our last step involves the construction and deployment of additional trains within the network that focuses on relieving congestion from inner city areas as well as more efficiently connecting outer city areas to the North Shore line. Potential issues involved in this plan foremost include the high cost of the project versus the long-term benefit, the severe delay and disruption to the existing public transport network during construction, as well as the increased stress on existing operating and maintenance staff. Furthermore, these issues should be accounted for and mitigated throughout the implementation process.